I'm Claudine Wong from KTVU Channel 2 News, and we want to welcome you to discussion with Diana Becton, who is running for re-election as the District Attorney in Contra Costa County. Today's discussion is sponsored by the Contra Costa County Elections Division and Contra Costa Television, and we are recording this in the studios of Contra Costa Television. I do want to tell people watching at home that I will be asking a series of similar questions to both Ms. Becton and her opponent, Mary Knox, and I encourage you to watch both of those discussions so you can get a better idea of where both candidates stand. Good morning to you, Ms. Becton.
Good morning.
Thanks for joining us. So let's give voters a better idea and a better look at who you are. You're a Superior Court judge for 22 years, and then in 2017 you were appointed to DA, then won the full term in office 4 years ago. So tell me about what you've done to the office and what you would do moving forward if reelected.
Okay, well, thank you. That it's going to be a kind of a big question to answer, but we have made significant change in this office since I've been here. The first thing I do want to mention, though, you're right, I did serve as a judge for 22 years, but I was also elected as the presiding judge of the Superior Court of Contra Costa County, which placed me over the entire court in a $54 million budget. It really makes me uniquely suited to be able to run a large operation like a district attorney's office, where I have a staff of 226, and we serve all the residents in Contra Costa County, all 1.15 million residents, and I have 3 separate offices and locations. So with that background, also being appointed to the Governor's Victims Compensation Board to make sure that victims of crime are getting the services and the support that they need. I have made so many changes in the office, and I'm proud to say that public safety has been my #1 priority for the citizens of Contra Costa County. I have held those who harm victims accountable. We have adopted innovative and new approaches that reduce racial disparities and move us beyond a singular reliance on incarceration. And with safety as my #1 priority, I have charged those who have been involved in organized retail theft rings, and I've coordinated with 6 counties and law enforcement, federal, state, and local, to make sure that we have a swift response to those who are committing these crimes. I co-lead the Safe Streets Task Force, which focuses on those who are committing violence in our community through gangs and guns. I have also established a hate crimes unit and a committee that reviews those cases as they come into our office, and we partner and train law enforcement agencies as well as partners with many in our community. I have established the office's first human trafficking unit to stop the exploitation of people for sex and labor. I've dismissed thousands of old marijuana convictions that keep people from getting housing and jobs. I'm making law enforcement and public officials accountable for abuse of power, and I've improved the investigations for officer-involved shootings. But we've made tremendous strides in other ways. I was able to obtain $1 million to establish the first juvenile restorative justice pre-filing diversion program. So we have different options for our youth, not only to hold them accountable, but also to make sure that we're getting them the treatment and the services that they need so they don't recidivate and they are able to thrive in our society. I've created the Reimagine Youth Just Task Force so that we recommend alternatives to the adult system for our young people. And I've made sure that people with substance abuse and mental health issues are getting treatment. I could go on and on, but
well, let me ask you this though. Given those
important thing, and that is that there was a backlog of untested sexual assault kits in Contra Costa County as well as elsewhere. And we have up to date, our sexual assault test kits are all up to date. And I've established a new tracking system in our office working with law enforcement so that those test kits do not get behind again.
So given what you have done, what do you want to do next if you are reelected?
Certainly, community safety will always be my number one priority, but I have three basic priorities that I'm very concerned about right now. One is what we call our TAY youth, those who are aged 18 to 25, excuse me, and we have no real alternatives for them other than incarceration in this system. So I'm hoping to establish the restorative justice diversion program for that age group as well. They have the highest rate of disparities in our system. I am also seeking additional resources to be able to better support our human trafficking unit. And then finally, I am making data and transparency one of my number one priorities. My goal in working with different agencies is to be able to stand up a dashboard so that our community can go there to see exactly the work we're doing, the cases that we are charging, and also have a better understanding of how the work that we're doing in the DA's office is affecting outcomes in our communities. And then last piece is our work with the Vera Institute will be getting published this in the next few months. We are an exclusive in this country working with the Vera Institute to use our data to drive our policies going forward. And it helps us to look not only at where we have disparate treatment within our community, but also to implement policies to change that trajectory.
Can you talk about drug diversion programs and some people who are critical of it, saying that it is not do enough, to come down on some people who are charged with crimes?
Drug diversion program?
Your drug diversion programs for people who are charged
Sure.
with certain crimes?
We have several opportunities for those who might be addicted to drugs in our community, other than the singular approach of incarceration. So one is to try to get people into treatment, and that is by referring them to our healthcare system. We also have other programs that I've just launched, for example, our neighborhood restorative partnership. This is where low-level and nonviolent offenses like those who are addicted to drugs can have their cases heard by a panel of 3 in our communities who have been trained using a restorative justice lens. They then have an opportunity to try to get to the root cause of the problem and also get that person into services and treatment. We track those cases so that there is accountability and follow-up as well.
Can you talk about the case of Andrew Hall, certainly the deputy who was convicted for his involvement in the shooting of Vladimir Arboleda? Can you talk about how that has maybe changed the way that we look at officer-involved shootings?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, we've made a tremendous stride in terms of improving our investigations for officer-involved shootings. And sadly, as was the case here, we did charge an officer who, as we all know, put himself in front of a car moving 5 miles an hour that was being driven by a mentally ill, non-armed man, shooting 9 times into that car. A jury of citizens from Contra Costa County found that Officer Hall was guilty. And a judge gave a very lengthy record of why she believed a state prison sentence was appropriate. This was a historic case for Contra Costa County in the sense that an officer had never been charged and held accountable in this way before. So I think what it really does is it says that we have improved our investigations and that we are making sure that no matter what position you are in, that you are not above the law, and we will hold those accountable who abuse their power here in Contra Costa County.
I want to switch to theft, smash and grabs. Of course, we saw the crowds rushing Nordstrom, and there's been a lot of discussion on not only how you catch them, but how you prosecute them. Can you talk about the efforts to put a stop to crimes like that and the other theft crimes and that we are seeing across not just the county, but the Bay Area and the nation?
Absolutely. So immediately, we all know that we made national news in Contra Costa County when we had 90 people enter 3 separate entrances at Nordstrom's simultaneously to commit crime and retail theft, and then they all exited the same way. Naturally, law enforcement was only able to apprehend a few, but for those who were apprehended, we moved swiftly to file serious felony charges, including organized retail theft and robbery. Some were injured in the store, and so those who were apprehended by law enforcement will be held accountable. But also recognizing that those who are committing these crimes are organizing. I also organized with other district attorneys up and down the state of California. We are sharing our resources because we recognize that these individuals are organized and that the crimes that they're committing travel from county to county. They might be in Contra Costa today, but tomorrow they may be in Santa Clara. So I am partnered with DA offices all the way from Santa Clara to San Joaquin, San Mateo, Alameda, and we are all sharing resources and intelligence with federal and state and local law enforcement agencies to make sure that we have the best resources available to crack down on those who are committing these crimes in our county. We've not had any additional major incidents in Contra Costa County, and I think it is attributable to the fact that we moved very swiftly and we have immediately held those accountable who committed these crimes.
All right, Diana Becton, I want to invite you now to give your closing statement of 2 minutes.
Thank you. Well, I'm happy to say that 4 years ago, Contra Costa County voters like you elected me as your district attorney, and that was overwhelming support. And I'm proud to say that I've worked hard to deliver safety and justice and progress for the people of Contra Costa, holding those who harm victims accountable, adopting new and innovative approaches that reduce racial disparities and move us beyond our singular reliance on incarceration. We have charged, as I've mentioned, those who've committed organized retail theft, and I've also led the FBI Safe Streets Task Force to focus our attention on those who commit violence using guns and gangs. We're combating hate crimes, combating human trafficking, and stopping those who are exploiting those for sex and labor. We're also holding law enforcement and public officials accountable for abuse of power. And we have put resources into our youth by establishing the county's first juvenile diversion program. I was sworn in 4 years ago with a promise to do things differently. Together, we have built change that can last. And I'm running for re-election to continue the important work of making our communities safer and our system fairer for everyone. I am endorsed by every congressman in Contra Costa County, our state leaders like Malia Cohen, Fiona Ma, and Betty Yee, justice leaders, our state legislators, city leaders, major organizations like Labor, Democracy for America. I am the East Bay Times endorsed candidate to bring justice and reform to Contra Costa County. And the Labor AFL-CIO has endorsed me as well. I have the support of environmental leaders and educational leaders and transportational leaders, as well as local county leaders. We work every day to hold those accountable and to keep our community safe. I hope I have your support going forward. Thank you.
Diana Becton, thank you so much. We are out of time. We appreciate you, and we appreciate you coming in to talk. This concludes our discussion with Diana Becton, who is running for re-election as the district attorney in Contra Costa County. We will be right back to meet and hear from the other candidate for Contra Costa County district attorney. Ms. Knox, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate this opportunity.
So you've been in the DA's office for 37 years. We want to give voters a better look at who you are, why you want to run for district attorney, and what you're campaigning on.
Certainly, thank you. I've been in the office for 37 years. I've worked as a DA in every criminal division of the district attorney's office. And I'm running for DA to restore public safety to Contra Costa County, to hold those who commit crimes responsible and protect the rights of crime victims. I've spent my 37-year career as a prosecutor basically doing exactly that. In fact, I've successfully prosecuted some of the most notorious criminals in Contra Costa County's history. Last month, I convicted Mitchell Bacon of the 1980 kidnapping, rape, and murder of 14-year-old Suzanne Bombardier. The current policies in place in Contra Costa County have encouraged crime and criminals to come to our county. And I believe that this rising crime has endangered the safety of our citizens and the economic health of our businesses. And as DA, I will work to restore public safety and the health of our communities.
So if elected, day one, you walk into the office, tell me what the first priority is that you do as district attorney in Contra Costa County.
My first priority would be undoing some of the current policies that require DAs, when they're filing charges, for example, on looting, to consider whether or not the looters needed what they stole, and also to file alternative charges to looting if there are other appropriate charges, such as commercial burglaries. And the really significant part about that is looting is a charge that carries a bail, and the other property crimes are zero bail offenses. So we need to effectively prosecute the looters. For example, in 2020 in Walnut Creek downtown, 61 businesses were looted with $5 million in damage. And so this is a crime that really needs to be addressed to restore our economic health as well as public safety. I would also undo the policy that currently prohibits DAs from charging even misdemeanor offenses when thefts are committed involving less than $300 in merchandise. This is unsustainable for our family-owned businesses and even for mid-level retailers to allow $300 at a time to walk out the doors of our businesses. I would also undo the policy that prohibits DAs in our office from filing misdemeanor possession charges on less than 3 grams of fentanyl, tar heroin, cocaine, methamphetamine. We need to file charges in order to get people effectively into drug treatment and start addressing the root causes of crime.
So is it fair to say that you want to take a harder line on some of these, and can you tell me how you think that would change the outcome of what happened at Nordstrom and Walnut Creek, how that might have changed what happened next?
Yes, and I think it's as opposed to a harder line, I believe my position and my effectiveness will be in enforcing our current laws. We need to enforce our laws to effectively send the message to criminals in our county and criminals who are coming to our county to commit crimes that they will be held accountable. And we can very effectively prevent these organized looting incidents by utilizing our DA Safe Streets task force to work collaboratively with local law enforcement with mutual aid as these events are organized on social media to effectively prevent and deter the criminals from coming. For example, we could shut down the areas around Broadway Plaza. That was done effectively by the Concord Police Department when the looting of the veranda was threatened back in 2020. Danville was also successful in preventing looting in their downtown by effectively working with the sheriff's office and the business owners in Danville to protect the downtown Danville area.
And so you mentioned you want to take away the question of when people are looting, are they doing it for need? I also have read that your position on drug diversion programs, saying that you object to drug diversion reforms. Can you talk about that?
I'm afraid that with regard to the drug diversion, that was a misstatement of my position on drug diversion. I have always been, throughout my career, actively involved in attempting to reduce the people who are addicted to drugs in our society. It's the great fueler of many crimes and also violence. And so I've spent much of my career, in fact, I had a DA in the Community Violence Reduction Unit that I ran. Her job was to go into the middle schools to bring an anti-drug message as well as anti-gang message to our middle schoolers when they're the most receptive and open to considering that type of message. So in addition to hopefully creating generations who are not using drugs, I'm a total advocate of diversion programs. And the filing of criminal charges is what put someone into the pipeline to be able to participate in diversion. And the term diversion actually has a legal definition in the penal code. So diversion is diverting someone out of the criminal justice system after charges have been filed, and it allows the courts to then make referrals into drug treatment, which is the most effective means of getting people into effective drug treatment.
One of the cases that certainly made headlines and was a first for the county was Andrew Hall, the sheriff's deputy, who was convicted and sentenced to 6 years for an officer-involved shooting. There have been discussions of Vladimir Arboleta in terms of mental health and how that should be handled. Can you tell us what you think about that case and what it means for the office moving forward?
So Claudine, I cannot comment on the facts of the case because I was not involved in the investigation or in the prosecution. So it would be irresponsible of me to comment on the facts. I do know that the delay in the filing after the case was initially presented to the current DA in 2018 and the shooting was determined to be justified, that 2.5 or 3 year delay in filing the charges was very concerning. If the shooting was not justified, then the charges should have been filed back in 2018 to effectively prosecute. By delaying justice or delaying a decision related to charging, has a negative impact both on the public's confidence in the process as well as the resultant verdicts.
Do you have a generalized approach to then how you would handle officer-involved shootings? And certainly policing and the prosecution of police officers is a topic that's being discussed, not just in Contra Costa County, but across the nation.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm actually on our Leafy protocol team. I volunteer my time. I'm on call for 2 weeks at a time, 24 hours a day to go out to be the attorney on scene in an officer-involved fatal incident. It's critical for the public as well as the involved parties that these investigations be done transparently, thoroughly, and swiftly to come to a fair and just resolution. And absolutely, if the facts and the law determine that a police officer has committed a crime, then absolutely they will be charged. Police officers are not held to a different standard than any other citizen in our county.
In terms of, you mentioned policies and things that you would change within the office, in terms of the state of where things are just across the board and how long you think it would take to make the changes that you think are necessary, what is the time frame in terms of that?
Well, the change in policies would happen the first day that I take office. And I believe that the prosecutors in my office are so excited and ready to return to effective law enforcement. Law enforcement throughout this county is standing by, ready to continue to do the work that they've always done. And quite frankly, I believe that the public, I've been campaigning since July of last year, out speaking to people in every community across our county about the issues that are important to them. And universally, public safety and the rise in crime is on everyone's mind. And I believe that we're going to have tremendous support for restoring public safety in Contra Costa.
One of the other issues that have come up recently as well are freeway shootings and in general the sense of safety. How do you reestablish people feeling safe in Contra Costa County?
I believe that one way that we can increase people's feeling of safety on the freeways is to expand our freeway security network. In 2005, our shootings from Highway 80 in Richmond out Highway 4 through Antioch, we had in 2015 and 16, we had 58 confirmed shootings on that stretch of highway with 8 fatalities. And I worked to design a system that incorporated ShotSpotter, pan tilt zoom cameras, and license plate readers that integrate together to effectively investigate the freeway shootings. And I was successful in obtaining $3.5 million from the California Transportation Agency to fund this project for Contra Costa County. since the funding was not available locally. And so as that system's been installed, the shootings in the coverage area have been reduced dramatically. In 2019, when the system was fully operational, we had 2 shootings in the coverage area, and they were both solved within hours with data taken from the system. So I believe.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. I have to give you your 2 minutes for your closing statement. I don't want to take away time from that. So go ahead if you want to finish it in closing statement, but take your 2 minutes.
Thank you, Claudine. So as your DA, I will continue with proven crime prevention and reduction methods, for example, with the Freeway Security Network, working with state agencies to expand our system to greater areas on our freeways, to restore public safety on our freeways. And I am honored to be endorsed by elected officials who actually live in Contra Costa County and feel the impact of the rising crime. I'm endorsed by Tim Grayson, by Candace Anderson, by Karen Mitchoff, by mayors and city council members, as well as Sheriff Livingston and the law enforcement agencies throughout Contra Costa County. I'm also proud to be endorsed by statewide law enforcement agencies, CORAC, the California Narcotics Officers Association, the California Gang Investigators Task Force, California Correctional Peace Officers Association. And as your DA, I will work collaboratively with law enforcement and continue my proven experience in crime prevention and reduction, as well as holding people who choose to commit crimes accountable and protecting the right of crime victims. Thank you.
All right, Mary Knox, we certainly appreciate you coming on, appreciate your time. That does conclude our discussion with Mary Knox, who is running for District Attorney in Contra Costa County. To view this broadcast online, go to www.cocovote.us. I'm Claudine Wong from KTVU Channel 2 News. Thank you so much for watching, and don't forget to vote on June 7th.